President Emmanuel Macron of France.
Thank you very much, Hazan. Thank you so much for this session. And thank you very much for your words, both based on science and tradition and culture of indigenous people. Let me first thank and congratulate our host and wish a happy National Day of our good friends of Emirates today. Colleagues, let me go directly straight to the point. Our position is that our two COPs on climate and biodiversity cannot be separated. And I think you made a perfect scientific demonstration on the complementarity of the two agendas, climate change and biodiversity together. And first, because nature is the best technology available to capture and store CO2. And we are investing a lot of money. There are a lot of innovation for carbon capture and storage mechanism, which is good. But the very best one, and the one which should not be suppressed, is forests and oceans, meaning nature. And if we have to put money on the table, this is for this solution, because they do exist, and they can preserve solutions for carbon, biodiversity, and precisely ecosystem for people and indigenous people. There is as well another reason. If we increase the economic value of natural capital in our economy, we will enable our countries with low emissions and large carbon sinks to benefit greatly from the ecological transition and making our transition much more fair, which is essential. So I just wanted to take here some commitments and make some very concrete announcements based on this philosophy. First, on forests. We organized a few months ago with some of you the first One Forest Summit in Libreville last March. But a lot of you here in this room did a lot during the past years and decades on forests. And I see my good friend, Prime Minister of Norway, and I want to congratulate your country because probably you are one of the pioneers and leaders in terms of investment on forests. And I want to commend you on the commitment of your country and your funds because you did a lot of work. But I think we collectively, and with your strong partnership and cooperation and the partnership of a lot of countries and scientists being present here, the fact that forests, which possess the most vital reserves of carbon and biodiversity, must be remunerated for what they are. And we have to remunerate countries when they protect actively these forests. And the big paradox of our world is that till now, we did put a lot of money for reforestation, but without acting in order to preserve existing forests. And in a very few forests, from Amazonia to Congo River, and precisely the three rivers and the Basin Congo, and to Southeast Asia and Papua New Guinea, and Prime Minister Marape is joining us. You have something like 15% of our Earth, but more than 90% of ecosystem of us well-known species, and more than 75% of irrecuperable carbon, which means each time we destroy these forests, this is a delay to the road of carbon neutrality, and this is part of the carbon we liberate, and we kill part of our efforts. And we kill as well a very important carbon sink. So we base an approach country by country, a new partnership, scientific partnership to measure and monitor those vital reserves, win-win economic partnership designed to create more added value locally by developing a high-quality forestry economy, involving indigenous people and local ecosystem precisely to work with those knowing the forests, living in the forests, and based on their precisely knowledge and transmission, and a partnership on innovative financing, which should make it possible to generate high-quality carbon and biodiversity credits on the basis of this strategy. And this country-by-country package, this forest package, let's say, is precisely the one we are finalizing. And today I'm very pleased to announce that 2 partnerships have already been signed, the first with Papua New Guinea for $100 million, the second with Congo-Brazzaville for $50 million, and we are finalizing one with DRC for $16 million. And these 3 countries, the third one is being finalized, are the 3 pioneers of this methodology with this new approach, new partnership, new financing. Other partnerships will follow by COP30. I would also like to say a word based on that, on the fact that we can accelerate if we develop this methodology. It's very comparable with what we do with JETP in a certain way for energy. It's based on the country-by-country approach. We gather financing and we accelerate transition. And we can do much more, and I want to thank philanthropy. I already thank countries like Norway, but a lot of Philanthropy Conservation International and a lot of you being already involved in this approach, and with whom we will do much more with additional countries. Speaking about forests and this approach, I would also like to say a word on the subject of carbon pricing. As you know, we have long defended the idea that this is the best tool for accelerating our green transition. And it is a tool that is providing its worth, as we know in Europe. It's a tool that is now being developed all over the world. However, the current system is still deficient because many of the countries that emit the least but absorb the most CO2 do not have a proper access to the carbon market. A company that emits a lot of carbon will be taxed at the borders of the European Union, but conversely, a company that invests massively in forest protection in Brazil, Gabon, Papua New Guinea will have great difficulty in generating high-quality carbon credits because the market infrastructure of carbon credits on an international scale is highly fragmented and very inefficient today. I believe that this is one of the most important tasks to be pursued between now and COP30 in Belém. We must set up an international carbon and biodiversity exchange which will enable very high-quality carbon and biodiversity credits to be traded between its members on the basis of common standards and rules. This is a critical issue, and I want to thank Dame Amelia Fawcett and Sylvie Goulard for the very good work made by our common task force, because the work you are doing on biodiversity, this new accountability, but the merger of this approach between carbon and biodiversity credits will allow us to build this new exchange system and a sort of marketplace integrated globally and allowing these countries and the private players to have a much better functioning. I want to say to our Brazilian friend, I know that President Lula, and I do share his approach, wants to do much more on that. In a nutshell, our strategy must make it possible to combine the protection of the planet and the fight against poverty and more equitable international relations. And this is why we launched this Paris Pact for Planet and People in Paris a few months ago. And these 4 Ps will be the basis to work all together following this agenda for the Brazilian G20 until the next COP in order precisely to make this work. We will have the opportunity to push this agenda together under the Brazilian leadership in G20, and before that, during a state visit I intend to make to Brazil in March 2024. I also want to make it clear to my fellow citizens of French Guiana that France has an interest in this topic also because we are present in the heart of the Amazon with French Guiana. And clearly, I want here to say that we will develop a new strategy to support a high-quality forest economy in French Guiana in the coming weeks and months based on this approach. Now, the second pillar after forests is oceans. Ocean is our first carbon sink. And as you know, we will organize the next United Nations Conference on Ocean in Nice. And this is very close to what we do as well, together with Norway, on cryosphere, on glaciers and poles. But oceans is very important, and we have this initiative with Costa Rica. And I would like to pay tribute to the commitment of President Rodrigo Chavez Robles. This conference in Nice will be very important, and I just want to say a few words on that. First, we want the scientific community to come together on the ocean in the same way as it has come together on climate within the IPCC. And what we want to do is to establish a scientific consensus on ocean, but a common indicator to assess in a certain way the state of the art and to clearly monitor the situation on the ocean and to have a common measure on the progress made, but as well on the critical issues on ocean, but assessing, obviously, all the different criteria to be taken into consideration. Second, we want to make in Nice the updates of our international law. Numerous negotiations are already underway, and we are working intensively to bring them to a successful conclusion by the time of the Nice conference. I'm thinking in particular of the ratification of the BBNG agreement on the high seas, the endorsement of a new legally binding treaty on plastic pollution, and I know, Razan, how committed you are on that, and the universalization of agreements on illegal fishing. I'm also thinking of the major work we are doing to prevent the exploitation of the seabed that could bring some irreversible damage to our marine biodiversity. 24 countries have already allied with France to accept and make the same commitment, and we will continue to increase the momentum. And finally, on the fringe of the conference, we will be holding a major summit on the blue economy in Nice and Monaco in order precisely to follow up and accelerate innovation based on sea. In September 2024, finally, on the sidelines of the next UNGA in New York, we will be organizing a new One Planet Summit on water governance, the One Water Summit. And together with Kazakhstan, we will propose a series of new rules and guarantees in order to have a better cooperation globally in order to deal with the water issue. Here were some critical solutions on a sort of solutions agenda I wanted to share with you. But clearly, biodiversity and climate change is the same fight and should be the same commitments at our level. Clearly, we have to accelerate, and we have to take this agenda in consideration in our trade discussion, in our national and international solution. And clearly, we have to work on the basis of science and indigenous people's solution. This is what I wanted to share with you, to thank my good friend, and I want to thank clearly the 3 countries engaging on this forest agenda, DRC, Congo-Brazzaville, and PNG, because they did a wonderful job. Ministers and prime ministers are here, and I want to commend them for what you did and what you're doing, and you can count on us. But forests, oceans, and water as a critical issue in order for all of us to succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for really reminding us that nature conservation